My name is Victoria Low, and I'm Head of International Programs at the Hong Kong Management Association. And today, we are very happy to have Professor Neil O'Connor with us again. The topic today is taking the next steps in bringing your industry data into your thesis story, content analysis, algorithms, and theory. So before Neil starts the session, allow me to take around 2 minutes to quickly give you the background of this DNA platform and the organization behind. Hold on. Yep. So the Doctoral Network and Advisory, DNA in short, was established by the Hong Kong Management Association, aiming to provide academic and pastoral support to doctoral students across institutions and regions. So since last June, I think June last year, we've arranged 7 webinars on various topics in relation to doctoral study and research. We've discussed about research proposal and the problems you encounter in the research process. We've talked about literature review, ways to theorize your managerial experiences, how to get your papers published, what you can do to engage industry for impactful research. And this is exactly the one delivered by Neil in March. And recently, how you can test your hypothesis by quantitative methods. So more synchronous webinars in the pipeline. We'll also provide private sessions on thesis consultation from time to time. So stay tuned. So the Hong Kong Management Association, we actually established in 1960, and we are a non-profit making professional organization aiming to advance management excellence in Hong Kong and the region. The association is now one of the largest education and training programs organizations in Hong Kong. And we aim to promote best practices in management, provide members with a platform for exchange of ideas, networking, and personal development. Last but not least, nurture human capital through management education and training at all levels. To achieve these missions, we organize several management awards and competitions to recognize companies or individuals who are outstanding in their respective business disciplines. We host seminars, workshops, and conferences on the various management themes. And education and training is a key area of our work. We organize annually hundreds of diploma and certificate courses covering most management and business areas. We also worked with overseas international institutions. Most of them are top-notch for various executive programs and study tours. Apart from these, we also work with other universities worldwide to run degree programs in Hong Kong. Currently, we have some 15 partners offering more than 30 undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And among them, we have 3 doctoral programs offered jointly with overseas universities, including 3 DBAs and 3 PhDs. I think that's all for the background of the HKMA and DNA. So may I pass it to you now, Neil? Are you there to kick off the webinar? And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Introduce? I don't know if I need an introduction. Okay, thank you, everyone. Can I have a show of hands? I just want to see if there's real people I'm talking with tonight. Right?
Hi.
Can we have at least a video just for 10 seconds just to say hello? All right, can we just do that? All right.
Hi.
Please. You know. All right, so we've got real people here.
Hello.
And so when you email me for slides, I know that's not a bot, it's a real person emailing me. So we're going to have lots of fun tonight, and there's a lot to get through, but I want to cover your questions are critical, and it's not me talking, but I really want to get a lot across tonight, and please pay attention and do ask questions. It's so critical. Your questions are critical, and you must take action on some of the things I'm talking about tonight, because it's been 5 months since you saw me. Is that right? Only 5 months. So what have you done in the last 5 months? And I hope tonight you'll just see that, wow, O'Connor's been busy. I better work a little bit harder. Okay, let's just see what we can do. Remember, part of tonight is how to write up your industry engagement without pulling your hair out. That's one way of seeing it. Or just how did I go to the next level in terms of the data projects I introduced to you in March. And back in March, I gave you this baseball analogy. Now, let me just share my screen to make sure that you can see everything we share. In March, I gave you this baseball analogy. You remember that? Because many people come to me, even my staff in Monash. I'm still working for Monash Malaysia from Hong Kong, but we're all online these days. And they come up to me, how do I get data from industry? I said, that's the wrong question. All right, your first question, maybe, what is it you're passionate about? And I know many staff, look, I've been across 8 institutions and I've seen a lot of unpassionate academics. I've seen a lot of unpassionate researchers. And I just wonder how they could ever engage industry without that passion. So it really starts with your passion for a topic. So maybe for some of you tonight, you are 12 months into your DBA. You are 6 months in and you're not feeling passionate about your topic. And you think, oh, it's too late now. I've already committed to the supervisor. It's too late now. I've gone through the approval processes. It's not too late. If you are not passionate about your topic, then change your topic. I'm serious. If you're not passionate about your topic, industry don't want to talk to you anyway. Okay, so that was first base. The second base was developing a proof of work. Get out there and collect some data on the industry without interviewing. Get out there and get to know industry. On Monday, I spoke to 80 members of the Malaysian Plastics Association. For the weeks leading up to this talk, this was just last Monday, I went out and gathered all data about plastics manufacturers in China, tooling manufacturers in China, the plastic resin manufacturers in China, and I made up PowerPoint slides. I did my proof of work. I didn't want to come to an association, oh, I don't know anything about plastics, but please listen to what I know about. Like, you don't do that, all right? Do your proof of work. And then relationship building, that's where you do your coffee, your outreach meetings, then you can bring something to that table. Finally, you made the opportunity to interview, get extra data, and maybe do some analytics. So that's where we were. That's where we were in March. And I gave you some examples of 2 passion projects of mine. All right. So what next? Here's the big thing I want you to take away tonight. One of the big things is your passion and second base. They're the things that are unique to you, because the first base, not first base, your batting base, that's what's unique to you, the passion. Only you can be passionate about your topic. You can't expect others to be. Just excuse me for a moment. Then second base, that is unique to you too, because that's where you are meeting industry. That's where you are engaging industry. First base is where you're gathering data online, proof of work. I had RAs help to gather data online for me about the plastics industry, for example. You see, of course, I had to study it up and all of that, but I had help with outsourcing. I outsourced some of that work. And when you get to base 3, yes, you can outsource that too. Really? But O'Connor, I thought I was supposed to do the thesis all by myself. Well, in the end, the story of your thesis is your passion, your topic, and your connection with the industry that your thesis may be related to. That's what's unique. Often, how you got the data and how you did the analysis, that may not be unique to you. Your story, your topic and story, that's what's unique. And that's what you want to bring out in your thesis. I want to keep in mind that. Why? Because some of the things I tell you tonight, you're going to say, oh, O'Connor, I don't have the time. Oh, O'Connor, it's okay for you. I've got other things to do. I just want to do an ordinary DBA where I can just do my 5 hours a week and get on with other things that are important in my life. Sorry, I don't have time for that type of approach to a DBA. All right, you're either full in or you're not, especially if you want to engage industry, especially if you want your DBA to count. Like when I mean count, it just doesn't go on a library shelf and no one reads it in the future. It just doesn't go on a library shelf and doesn't get published. Okay. So passion, very important. And that relationship building, they're two big things that are unique to you. All right. Please excuse me. Okay. So last time, I'll just remind you that it was all about developing connections using your LinkedIn, figuring out coffee time, right? But I tricked you in saying, yes, you got to do coffee time, but you need to do proof of work. Coffee time is base 2. Proof of work is base 1. Okay. All right. Just reminding you, but some of you are asking new questions. Some of you are asking new questions, and there's some of the questions that have been sent to me in the last 24 hours. Number 1, how to liaise industry required data. Okay, we got control of our audio. Good. How to liaise with industry for the required data. How to get the most information out of the data. I'm going to show you how to do that. And my first response to the first question, sorry for the question mark, is it's about proof of work. Proof of work is base 1, coffee base 2. That's where you start to get in touch with the industry. Okay, and base 2, that's your uniqueness, unique give as well. Now your second question we're going to spend more time on tonight, how to get the most information out of the data. My immediate answer, graph it again. How do you do that? I'm going to show you what I did with one of the projects tonight. We just graphed the hell out of the data, and graphs, I'm talking about hundreds of graphs. I'll show you them tonight. Okay. By the way, I outsourced some of the graphing too. All right. You've got to be smart with your time. Neil is not that crazy that he spends all his time doing this. I'm very smart when it comes to, if I can get someone else to help me do something, I will pay them to do that. Okay, that's how organizations work. All right. So third question, how to take your idea from the research proposal over to the collection of data, over to final dissertation. I want to cover that tonight. Population sample sizes, not the most critical, more the better. Conducting data collection during the pandemic. Okay, focus on proof of work. Use your LinkedIn connecting Zoom calls. Okay, so maybe you can't coffee, then do a Zoom call. But you're in Hong Kong, you can do coffee. Why? Because things are open. So do make a note of that. And a reminder what I said in March, be available in a coffee place less than 50 meters from where that industry person is working in the office. All right, you minimize their transaction costs. Okay, so let's get on with what I want to cover. A few more questions. Some of you have asked research writing strategies, tips or strategies in writing results. Are there any theory that should be implemented to connect industry data and the explanation? I will cover that tonight. For example, coal price trends. That's not my strength in analyzing commodity prices. However, for that person that asked that question, I would say the following. You look up the journal called Energy Economics, and there's some very good articles in that journal that talks all about the trends, predictions, and the meaning of different graphs of commodity prices. All right, I just want to address some of them. Okay, let's just start with I was just thinking about where does theory fit with data? Okay, data is everything, right? As you can see here, it's the biggest wheel. The data is turning everything. We could call this the big wheel, big data. But I would say, if you want to think about theory, they come in two smaller wheels. And one is more an institution, more of a macro level type wheel, which country level. It could be an industry level. And an example is red ocean versus blue ocean strategy, or OECD versus non-OECD country institutions. You know, the legal frameworks in OECD nations is much stronger than in non-OECD nations. International versus domestic customers, there's differences there. These are all institution strategic differences. But we can go to a more micro theoretical level where we're starting to look at the transaction costs, information asymmetry, and maybe Porter's strategy and things associated how red ocean, blue ocean impacts on transaction costs. And information asymmetry is it's a theory that really seeps into just about any type of organizational life in the world. Information asymmetry meaning that someone knows something that you don't know, all right? Or you're in a principal-agent relationship and the agent is hiding things from the principal. So the principal needs to have some control over the agent to make sure that the agent works in the principal's best interest. And that's a common problem in all organizations around the world. Okay. So what am I going to do tonight? I'm going to talk about two big examples, and that is one way of getting from data to theory is to work backwards from the data rather than you start with the theory and then go forwards. And then another way is graph it, graph it, and graph it, and graph it again. And you just keep graphing, you keep dissecting, you keep moving the data around until you start to see patterns. And I give you two rich PowerPoint-laden examples of those two approaches tonight. These are very, very practical. And of course, I'm happy to answer questions, but let me go through probably for the next 20 minutes where we go through this. I'll set the timer. All right. No, I'm going to have the stopwatch, so it won't stop me, but I'll know that the timer is working because actually I got this because I know I go over time sometimes. So, hey, you know, sometimes professors can't control everything. Okay, engaging industry for impactful research. This is where we were last time. Now, remember this China Supplier 1000 study. Remember last time I told you about all the interviews we did with crowd-funded startups. And I said, wow, look at this. This is how you can impress industry with a graph like this rather than with a 30-page report. And they look at this and they go, wow, what is going on here? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain. You want a door opener. This is a door opener. Wow, what is this? O'Connor, I don't have time to do interviews, but we can do it online. Here is another door opener because everything you see here was achieved by going online and getting data of media reports. And at the time I spoke to you in March, I had 102 companies. Now I've got 108, and basically I've tracked 150 country moves. More about that in the second part tonight. So I've got two things to deliver tonight. Two big examples where we went from the data to storytelling. And that's what I want to show you tonight. First one, let's just start with this the IoT startups. And that's very important. I'm going to skip over this one, which was a paper I published in AOS in 2011. But we're going back to where I interviewed these startups. And you may be familiar with some of these people. back in 2016. We interviewed these. I showed you how I mapped them up in content analysis, and started, by the time you start to do interviews, you start to realize, I see a pattern between the first one and second interview and the third interview and the fourth interview, and they start to say the same things, and you start to predict their answers. And then you get into the trap of actually, when you ask the question, you actually answer the question at the same time and just ask them, can you confirm this or not? Yes. Oh, I thought so. Then you know you've done enough interviews. All right. So obviously, this is how you map up the content analysis. You can start to write down common things that are coming out from interview after interview after interview. And then that can turn into something like this. When here we've interviewed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but now we extend it out to 50 companies. Okay, that's where I left you in March. All right, now what am I going to do tonight? How do we get from all of that to some kind of coherent story? Number one, do not write a story on all 50. Number two, pick out the most meaningful segment of this group that you think may be relevant and tell the best story to the literature. So in this case, we had two groups. We had one group, 34 of them, that had crowdfunding. Another group did not have crowdfunding. And I do know from my reading the literature, everyone's interested about crowdfunding. It's a fintech idea. It's been around for half the past decade, more. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, you know all of these. Some of you have probably purchased products on them. And it's a very interesting segment, because what we do find is that these crowdfunded startups didn't necessarily have trouble downstream in marketing. Well, because of the platform enables them to get feedback very, very quickly to know how many people are interested in their product. That's how it works with the crowdfunding. A lot of people sign up for your product and pledge money. We're on a winner here. Let's make more. It's sort of backwards from the ordinary firm of how they do things. And so this became an interesting story, because it's really interesting when 1,000 people pledge, say, 20,000, 30,000 US dollars to your bank account. Suddenly you have to deliver 1,000 products. Suddenly you have to go to a factory to get those products made. Are you ready? And the experience with these startups were, most of them were not ready. Wow, what an interesting story to tell. And so this is where we go through our list of challenges and pick out where we mapped out most of the problems that were occurring. And they were in the upstream supply chain challenges: IP protection, product development issue, manufacturing supply chain distribution. Let's just stop for a moment. What have I done here? Number one, and this is what you have to do. We started big, but you never write. Maybe your thesis is not supposed to be written on all of the data you have. There's someone, can they turn the microphone off? That would be great. Thank you. All right. Start with you do not write on all the data you have. You have a segment. I went down, looked at crowdfunding only. Then I looked at all the challenges. How many challenges I got here? We got 7, but we only picked out the 4. Why? Because those 4 challenges were most evident in the interviews. Kind of self-selection. But we need to embellish the story. We need to make the story come alive. And right now you're probably thinking, oh, O'Connor, you're manipulating the story. Bias. No, just hold off on that judgment for a moment. I just want you to see what we do over the next 5 minutes, and I'll convince you that it's anything but bias in what we're doing here. Okay, so we have these 4, and we've put down 4 because that's where we got most evidence from. Okay, so what did we do next? Well, we didn't pick out the 34 crowd-funded startups. We now thought in terms of a 2-by-2 matrix. We went from 34 down to 11. Neil, what's that? Sorry, excuse me. We went from 34 down to 11. Why? Well, you don't have time or space in your PhD, your doctor, your DBA to write about all 34 startups. You don't have time. You're better off going for depth rather than breadth. And so which 11 do you choose? Well, then we thought of a 2-by-2. We'll go for the low price and the high price. Why? Because those that are going for a high price, maybe they're under more pressure than those that are low price. It's easy to apologize to someone who just pledged $79 US. It's much harder if someone's pledged $250 US. You get what I mean here. There's a different kind of pressure. And then on the other side, we looked at, okay, let's have a look at the Internet of Things. And then on the right-hand side, let's have a look at a group of non-Internet of Things. So now we have some comparisons to make. And this is where you can start to think about theory. You might have a theory for why the difficulty of going to a factory may be more or less difficult depending on the price of the item. And it may be more or less difficult depending on whether it's sophisticated, complex Internet of Things versus it's a simple product, a non-Internet of Things item. So this is how we're starting to link the story to a theory. And we're picking out the best representations of those 4 quadrants. So we're trying to fit the 34 into these theoretical quadrants. So what do you do now? Well, of course, just to remind you, you need to map out how you did those interviews. And so in your DBA, you're going to have an appendix where you map out and describe when you did the interviews. Okay, that's great. And you need to describe a little bit more. Here's the 11. We spend a little bit more. Startups, products, and there's a picture and there's a description. You can see this is more the appendix of your DBA. You don't put this in your method or data results chapter. This is an appendix. It's background. All right. This may be a table in your DBA. All right. So it's sort of summarized information of the 11 across that 2-by-2. All right. And so just remind you again, we've got this framework, and up until March, I talked about those 4 challenges. But what we're doing tonight is working out, and what readers of an article want to know is not what your challenges were, but okay, given this challenge, how did you respond to them? And so this is what we have done. We've now found 10 groups of responses to those 4 challenges. On the right-hand side, 1, 3, 1, 6, 10 different responses or solutions to the challenges. And so just to remind you, this is one of the examples of Ambilabs, and that's Julian Lee, and we're going to follow. Let's just play that.
Sell out to the consumer.
What is the biggest 2 or 3 lessons that you've learned from the market?
So I think that products. The big number 1 lesson is that products like this,
Yes.
New smart home, innovative, new category products that people are not really looking for naturally. You can't just put them on a shelf and expect them to sell. There's a lot of marketing, a lot of trade support, a lot of sales floor training, all of this stuff that you have to do.
The thing that comes to mind is this is like your new remote control for your air conditioner. It just doesn't talk to your iPhone. So a question related to that, can I, in my iPhone, change the temperature of the air conditioner?
Especially in this part of the world where
about 100 or 200 units in Hong Kong.
Well, actually about 100.
About 100 in Hong Kong, not across the border in Shenzhen. And then the next stage you went to, you did a soft tooling with a factory in Shenzhen. So soft tooling is where you invested in tooling, but it's not. Now you're probably wondering, O'Connor, you're not interviewing him. You're just explaining. Well, I just want to show you a real case, Ambulabs, because what I did do, and for the data analysis, I have already interviewed Julian. I've interviewed him over the phone on 2 other occasions, and I just happened to see him at the Startup Launchpad, and so then I'm talking to him now for the purposes of giving content for global sources. Okay, so just want to give the background, but I want to bring some passion into what I'm talking about tonight, not just me talking, but you see the actual people in my case study. And so there's more stuff. And then there is, when I did interview Julian, now I map up some quotes that come from the challenges that he described in my interview with Julian. Okay. And there's some more quotes that are described in the interview. And notice that we have a challenge group, but we just put in a quote, and we're not grouping the solutions here, but here we're just grouping all the challenges. Notice that? And here's another example, Soundbrenner.
To start a hardware company.
And it is a good place. So have you received funding for this project so far?
Yeah, we received around $2 million so far.
Through private backers or Indiegogo? Through investors, right.
We also launched on Indiegogo where we raised around $260,000.
Wow, 2 million and 260,000.
To start a hardware company.
And it is a good place. Just one year, he raised over 260,000. Now, you would think there's a bit of pressure on someone like that to deliver the products on time. You're with me here. This is, I'm giving you the feeling for what it's like to be a crowd-funded startup. And this is the kind of passion you need to bring behind your DBA, and not just think the data is going to pass your DBA. You need to bring your passion into your storytelling. Okay, so here's the Soundbrenner interview, and their quotes come from the interview. You can pay someone to transcribe your interview, like what I've done here. All right, it doesn't mean you have to do everything. You can outsource that part. All right, and then we're grouping the challenge group. Okay, so what do you do next? There's more from the Soundbrenner interview. So there's 2 examples. All right, so question for you. How many challenges, just to remind you again, how many challenges are we talking about? How many groups of challenges? Quick, how many? 4, right? There's 4. Intellectual property, product development, manufacturing, supply chain, distribution. There's 4. Just want to remind you. Keep in mind there's 4. How many solutions are we mapping? We are mapping 10. Did we think of 10 first up? No, but here's the secret sauce. And this is why you came to the talk tonight, because this is what you do next. All right. This is what you do. You're going to make a slide like that for the first one. How do you do that? Well, this is what you do. This is, and this is what you're going to do for product development. First of all, you've got product development is one challenge, but there are different parts of that challenge that's coming out from those issues, but you group it together in product development. And then on the right-hand side, you cut and paste various quotations.
Lanjut. Siap. Salam sehat.
Wendy, can you mute everyone, please? Can we have everyone muted, please?
Yes, should be everyone muted.
Can we make everyone muted? Can you just?
Yes,
All right?
sorry.
All right. All right. Otherwise, I don't mind. I can talk over it. It just takes longer, and everyone's time conscious tonight. All right. So what we have product development on the right-hand side, these are summaries of individual quotes that we are picking out from all the interviews. You probably think, Neil, you're biased again, you're just picking out. But what's important is when you're writing it up, you are getting you're getting several quotes from different organizations just to support one solution. So for example, we've got 4 quotes here and then we've got 4 items, but we're going to summarize that into one major solution. And then we've got 4 different companies in quotations supporting that solution. Not just one company supporting one solution. So, and we went through this over with my partner and another helper. We met once a week for the last 6 weeks. And we would go over one of these slides in every meeting once a week. And we would spend 2-3 hours putting this together. Then we talk about, then we go to the next week. And now we look at product development. There's some more quotations. We're trying to, with the PowerPoint slides, we're trying to summarize what those quotations mean. And so we're turning quotations into short summaries of what those quotations are talking about. And then there's new quotes there. And so we start to write. So as a summary of product development, so, you know, our many meetings, there's our first draft and there's a draft to go with that and draft to go with that. But then we summarize it in terms of, okay, product development issues, and there are 3 big issues. And here are the representative quotes that support each of these issues. And those quotes come from different companies. All right. And that's very, very important. So you got BCX Lab, you got Lace Communications, you got Soundbrenner, you got different companies that are representing every one of the solutions. So it's not just one company's solution. So let's go to the next one, manufacturing process. First of all, we start on the left-hand side with the challenge. And then we realize, that can be broken up into 3 parts. But then the quotations are saying that, well, maybe factory selection, there are, 4 different quotations giving you different solutions to factory selection. And for MOQ, there are 5 different quotations being represented and then 2 for monitoring. And so, and then there's some more iterations. And then we bring that into something like this, where we have manufacturing supply chain complexity, and then we've summarized it into the startup community, reduced cultural distance, and working closely with the manufacturing supplier. You see, you cannot begin to write in your chapter the story until you've gone through this process. And sort of like panning for gold, you're picking up all this sand of quotations, but you want to shift it and find out, what do those quotations mean? They mean nothing on their own, but once we start to see common quotations across several firms, then we can start to say, we've got 3 major solutions to this manufacturing process problem. And there's the groups of quotations that are on the right-hand side that are supporting those 3 big solutions. What about product distribution? This is the draft. Again, where we map out initial quotations, we've got challenges. The challenges are easy, all right? But it's working out, what do the solutions mean and what is the best way of characterizing the solutions? And can we group what is said in one company as the same solution as what's in another company? And that's why on this slide, we have visiting events, expanding distribution, working with development business. We initially put down 3 different identifications of the solution. But then when we get to the final part, we now collapse that into diversifying distribution channels. And then we've got representative quotations that support that major solution. Now, this is something that you would put in your appendix of your DBA. All right, your appendix is kind of more like, okay, here is how we got from the raw data, the transcripts, and the transcripts you wouldn't necessarily put in your appendix, but this is kind of like the first raw collapsing of the transcripts. But then in your results, you would have this summary here. Okay, all right. And then there's the summary. Remember, what did we start with? We started with four challenges on one side, 10 solutions on the other. And there we have our 1, 2, 3, 4 challenges. There we have our 10 solutions with the quotes that support those solutions. And now we can write the paper. Neil, what do you mean by writing the paper? Well, that's easy because we've just started to write the paper and we're just writing on the first challenge and the solutions as we go. Neil, what are you talking about? All right, what's the first challenge and solution? IP protection, and then securing it. The first one we wrote on, we chose the one that we were most passionate about. Okay, so I think we started with let's have a look. We started with the manufacturing process. We were very passionate about that. And so it's another thing. How do you overcome writing blockages? Don't go linearly. Start with where you're passionate. We're passionate on the complexity and how they overcome that complexity. And so that's why we start writing here, where we're talking about the challenges of complexity here. Upstream supply chain complexity, 1 page, and then we write 1 page to summarize those 3 solutions with references to various quotations to support those solutions. Okay, and then of course we've got to write up the method and so forth. So you can see the writing is so much easier. Why? Because I have filtered and filtered and filtered and filtered those 50 interviews down to 34. Then we took 11. Then we put those 11 on 2 by 2. Then instead of looking at 12 challenges, sorry, the 7 challenges, we just looked at the 4 challenges, and then we found out there was 10 major solutions that were best represented by the quotations. And you could call this a kind of a grounded theory, because at no point in time going through this process did we sort of over theorize what we should expect. We were sort of going backwards from the data. All right, so that's the first part, first example I want to go with tonight. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. The second one, then we can get to some really interesting questions, is what else? What's another approach from getting from data to getting to your storytelling? And that is, you graph the data, you graph it again, you graph it again, you graph it again, you graph it again, you break it down again from many angles. Seriously, if you don't believe me, let me show you. Now, I thought I blew you away with this in March, okay? You haven't seen nothing yet, all right? So we've got 102, we're up to 108 now, but there's 150 countries that these, but for some of you who are just joining for the first time, all right? So we went to the media, Google, everything, and looked for any company announcement of moving capacity out of China. That's what we did, all right? And so this is publicly documented moves out of China down to Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, India, Mexico, USA, Taiwan, everywhere. Okay. There's 108 and they moved to 150 countries. That took 3 months to get together. The graphing, where we graph it once, we graph it again, we graph it again, we graph it again. It was iterative. That took another 3 months. A long time. Neil, did you do on this every day? No, I outsourced it. Remember I told you at the start, okay? What is unique to you is your passion for the topic and your passion for bringing your proof of work to the industry relationship. Okay. That is what you need, is to you. You can outsource. You can outsource stuff. Please do not try and do everything on your own. It's not about someone's going, you're plagiarizing because someone else does something for you and you're DBA. It's not about that. Okay. Your DBA is unique to you because of the passion you bring to it and the story you tell out of that. Now, here are the 108 companies. I want to show you how we graphed and then graphed more. All right. Here are the country relocation moves, 150. By the way, immediately, do you think this would appeal if I'm communicating to industry? Yes or no? Immediately, this would appeal to industry. Suddenly, if I'm speaking to industry, and I've already presented this to several industry associations, including the Plastics Association this week, suddenly what they do is they look for their company, or they look for companies they know. They look for their competitors. You're probably doing that now. All right. So this is how you get the attention. Remember, visual is so critical. All right. And now we've got graphs. Where to move. More graphs. Now, what do we mean by we have graphed the hell out of this? Let me show you. Let me give you the real example of what we're talking about. This is the data. This is the data with the help of an RA, outsourced. Own money. Let's be very clear here. All right. Use my own money for this, outsource, and pay an RA, get this data together. And you'll notice that there's the data. But what took 3 months was this, okay? The graphs. Because the graphs kept on changing. We added on more. Then I thought, I kept on talking to my business analytics RA. Can you do this graph? Can you try this? Can you update this? Can you change this? So let's have a look at the graphs that we're doing. More graphs. By the way, can you see what I'm showing you here? It may be small for you, but I just want to show you that this goes on and on. Okay. So we're up to row 152 here. All right. Pivot tables to get to the graphs. All right. You hire a business. This is all public data. Every one of you could do this. You don't need to talk to industry to get this data. More graphs. More graphs. More graphs, more graphs, more graphs, because I want to know everything about that data. I want to know more. I want to know more and more and more and more and more and more. All right. Do you want me to stop? Okay. So we're up to 900 rows here of graphs. All right. So I just want to show you, this is what I mean, how you graph you've got to graph the data, because, your big question you're asking me tonight, Neil, how do we get from data to storytelling? All right. Not once did I say tonight, your first sentence of your first paragraph of your introduction, you need to write this. Your second paragraph, this is what you want to write. I'm not going to tell you that. All right. We're going from the data backwards here. We're not starting with theory. We're going from data backwards. Now, here's the first story we can tell. Look at this. We've got all these moves out of China, 150 country moves. And think, wow, this is great. 54 moves to Vietnam. That's half. All right. But then I go one step further. Then I find out, some of them go to Vietnam for the first time. 16 of them. But some of them already have operations in Vietnam, 38. That's a different risk. That's red ocean, blue ocean strategy. Suddenly a theory. We could have a theory on, can we predict that a red ocean strategy is more popular or more relevant for one country than another country? And then we can have a look at the different countries and the different moves. Suddenly we're starting to think theoretically about, what's behind that moves to some countries versus another. And we can say whether they're close to market or not. We can, but you know, you're probably saying, yeah, but Neil, we really want to know. In the media, they will have said the reason why they're moving. Well, yeah, most of them say the reason why they're moving, but they don't always say all the reasons. But we did document that too. What else can you map up? You can map out the different industries. Some industries are complex. Some are very simple. Furniture is very simple. By the way, Vietnam now, the largest furniture exporter in the world. Vietnam now, the second largest apparel exporter in the world. They just passed Bangladesh. Ah, wow. O'Connor, you sound so expert now. Well, with all the graphing I've done in the last 3 months, I've got a lot of stories to tell on this data. This helps you when it comes to, number one, defending your DBA. Why? Because it brings out your passion and it brings out the uniqueness and the authenticity of your DBA. Okay? The theory is not your authenticity. It's your complete knowledge of the data. That's what makes you authentic. So you graph it again. You graph from all different angles. What do we mean? Well, from companies relocating their factories across different countries, or we can do it across industries, and there's industries moving out of China, industries relocating to different countries, or we can graph into country of origin, or we company of origin and different industries represented, or specific countries. Vietnam, north is different from south. You can do a DBA just on the factory moves to Vietnam alone. Ah, wow. And just you dig, because the companies that are going to North Vietnam are much more sophisticated than the ones going to the south. And there's the data, and you can do case studies on them for your DBA. Ah, Thailand, a big red ocean strategy move to Thailand. That means companies are already there. It makes it easy to move more capacity there. All right, Taiwan, a lot of these companies that move to Taiwan are US owned. Ah, there's a story there. Ah, what about Mexico? A lot of companies moving there are red ocean. They've already got facilities in Mexico and they want to be close to market. What about India? Same, red ocean. They're already in India. Ah, Malaysia. Let's go to Malaysia. Notice blue ocean is much bigger than red. Of course, only 7 factory moves we documented. You can see the stories that can come out once you start digging into individual countries. Ah, now what is most interesting, because some of you asked the question about, oh, can we apply analytics to the data? Oh, yes, you can. Yes. Yes, the most interesting part, the reasons for sourcing shift out of China. And that is, look, 17 reasons are documented. That is, and theoretically, you can think, okay, we know the blue reasons, that's geopolitical risk, trade war. We know that, and that only represents 38% of the reasons given, 328 reasons across 108 companies. That means on average each company gave about 2 or 3 or 4 reasons for the move. And that's another story too, because if you're going to move, you're never going to move for one factor alone. Oh, that's a talk for when I'm talking to buyers and industry and giving strategic advice to boards of directors that are involved in supply chain management. But there's the incentive from the receiving country, and notice that already established factory is very, very important. Issues from China, the cost of the land, product, labor and taxes is the most dominant there. So now we can start to think about the reasons and whether that's relevant to one country and not another. And we can graph the reasons on that. Then we can graph in terms of the issues from USA, issues in China across those countries that have been moved to. We can graph in terms of the incentives from the receiving country. South Korea didn't have cheaper land or labor, whereas Thailand, Vietnam did. Now, what about algorithms? Yes, since Vietnam, half of them moved to Vietnam, that means half of them didn't move to Vietnam. So now we can actually use a logistical regression analysis and actually predict whether a factory is moving to Vietnam or not. And suddenly we have a very nice logistical regression that says that if the factory market capitalization is larger, if the workforce worldwide is larger, if the percentage shift is larger, if the data relocation is more recent, then it's more likely they're going to move to Vietnam and availability of raw materials. But if the company is US owned, they're more likely to move to Taiwan or Mexico. If it's because of a fall in China's sales or a scope to improve the supply chain, obviously it's more likely they're going to move to India. And you can start to predict which countries they're moving to. So can you see how we went from this massive data and then suddenly now we've got algorithms predicting which countries these factory moves or capacity moves out of China are moving to. By the way, okay, I'm not anti-China. What I mean is when we talk about movements out of China, what we mean is movement of capacity out of China. Here's the thing, 108 companies move capacity out of China, but only 14 of them closed up factory space in China. All right, that means 94 still have capacity in China. All right, and those 94 could still be expanding their operations in China. So, this is not an anti-China type study or anything like that. It's, if anything, this is just a growth of opportunities for China +1, China +2 type strategy for a lot of these companies. Wow. See, the stories are coming out. Yeah, red ocean, blue ocean. You see how you start to apply theories to the reasoning for different moves. And so that's where I wanted to take you tonight, to show you how when we got the data, we can actually go from the raw data to algorithms that can actually tell stories. And then finally, like these are the only 14 companies that moved capacity out of China. Most of them are US owned, 9 out of the 14, and there's Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and a company in China. And then we can predict the percentage of shift out of China, and all of these items here are predictive of the extent that they are moving capacity out of China. All right, so because the average capacity move was only about 30 to 50% moving out of China. Very rarely were most moving 80 or 90 or 100% out of China. So getting back to what I want you to think about is data is the big driver of your story. All right, so number one, moving backwards. The first idea I gave you is how you go through the filtering of those interviews and transcripts. The second idea was you graph the data, you graph it again, and then as you graph and try and understand the data from different angles, you start to see pockets of patterns coming out. And then you can start to apply theories, and then you can start to tell stories and write up what those stories mean. So what does that mean for you? All right, and I'll pass over this because I showed you this in March, and I think we want to have more time for questions. But to finish up, last time in March, I think I told you about an arrangement where we're trying to predict the audit outcome of factory audits, and we have got algorithms and have already done that. So I've done lots of things in the last 5 months since you saw me, but this was a big thing you need to take away, and that is your passion. Gathering data is the proof of work, relationship building, industry data, but you need to get help with outsourcing. So what do you do how can you outsource? Like if you want to get a good RA in Hong Kong, it costs you 80 Hong Kong dollars an hour, 100 Hong Kong dollars an hour. It doesn't mean you have to get an RA in Hong Kong. You can contact an RA at Monash University in Malaysia and just pay them 20 ringgit an hour, which is only 40 Hong Kong dollars an hour. You get an RA in Indonesia and pay them 20 ringgit, or India. It's amazing how you can, through different connections, you can get someone who is expert at doing all those graphs I did. They're expert at just helping you to transcribe all the interviews that you did. So then you can get to work on doing the other things that are unique to you in your thesis writing. So just to remind you again, thank you very much for coming tonight. And I want to go over question time. But remember, the big idea is if your topic, if you don't feel passionate about it, you're 1 year in, you're 1 year into your thesis, please change your topic. Seriously, change your topic. It will matter so much more in 2 or 3 years' time, because that passion just helps you just to do so much more. Let me just stop there, and let's deal with lots more questions where I can help you even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. So this is question and answer session or discussion time. So feel free to raise your hands or unmute yourself.
Hi.
Or hi.
Hello.
Or just type your question in the chat box.
Angus, you have a question. Please use your audio. It'd be great to hear you.
Try to unmute.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you
my
for...
speaker off. Apologies.
Okay.
Okay, go again. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. O'Connor. So your presentation was very inspiring. Well, actually, I'm doing a kind of grounded theory, so very similar to what you did in the past few months. And I also outsourced some of the research work to some data panel supplier. So, but now I have a very critical question, because I did the data collection and already finished the analysis, and then I almost complete. Well, actually, I complete more than 90% of the interviews. But one thing is, the hurdle is that the interviewee, they were not willing to allow me to record the interview, because I was asking some sensitive question about the ESG reporting quality. So, well, those CFOs or company secretaries in the listed companies, they were all very reluctant for me to record the interview. So I exhausted other means. I just take notes. So I just want to ask you, is this a must to record the interview, or like my situation, I just jot down the notes and do the analysis? Is it okay?
Thank you. Totally okay. It completely. Like sometimes you've got to give and take with what industry will help you with. The most important thing is that how many interviewees did you interview?
22 listed companies.
Okay, number one, you spoke to 22 C managers, right?
Yes.
Okay, number one, your DBA is so unique because you got 22 C managers to give you their valuable time. Number one, Angus, you need to do not forget that. Whether you recorded it or you didn't, they gave you their valuable time.
Yes.
And that's something you need to remind yourself of that.
Okay.
That is 10 times more valuable whether you record it or not. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's because you, congratulations, Angus, that you were able to get that access. And
thank you very much.
That is really, really hard. Like C managers' time is just so valuable these days. All right. So you took copious notes, then write up those notes as best you can. Write them up and then substitute those notes.
Okay.
Substitute those notes with with media reports,
Okay.
maybe in the industry or competitor or annual reports, quotations,
Okay.
and what's written in the annual report, media reports, add that in. In my study of the interviews with the IoTs, yes, I was able to record everything and we had transcripts. Fine. But notice I did the interviews in 2016. Right? And then a reviewer's going to say, well, Neil, you know, they're 5 years old. Who cares about something 5 years ago? So what we did is we went to the websites of the crowdfunding campaign, the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and we were able to get quotations from 2017, 18 and 19 of these same interviewees saying something about their product. So now when we write up the article, we can say, oh, we did interviews in 2016 and we've got quotations in 17, 18 and 19, and it's much more recent. And that's exactly what you can do. You have you have all your notes, but you can add in actual quotes from the media, actual quotes from annual reports, actual quotes from anything associated with that company that the C manager represents. And I've done that in writing up a short case study on Puma, because I listened to Andor DeCourt, who is the global supply chain manager of Puma at the Made in Asia conference back in 2016. It was totally recorded, so I had full transcript. And then, but I was able to substitute that with what they said in their annual report in that year and the year after about what they're doing. And then, you know, substitute one with the other, and then it fills out the whole story, and then you've got two sources of data.
I see. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. O'Connor. So it is not imperative to record the interview. Well, in what you just said,
and if you can't, record the interviews, now I don't say you do the CIA and FBI and get wired up with a secret microphone and go into the interview. All right.
Okay.
Victoria, please, I know you're thinking that, but we don't do that. All right. You know, and you might have a recorder like this, right? And you might think, oh, we can hide that. No, you don't need to do that. But this is one thing I do. If I can't record the interview,
Okay.
is, so for example, you go and interview, you're in Central, and then you had the interview, you go out immediately. You go to a coffee shop, you go somewhere very quiet. I know it's hard in Hong Kong to find somewhere quiet, and you just press the record button, and you just dump everything that's in your mind immediately after the interview.
I see.
You've got
I
your
see.
notes, but then you speak out the different stories that those notes were talking about.
I see.
You read out the notes. Ah, yeah, this note here, you quickly scribbled down 3 or 4 words.
Yep.
Ah, what's he talking about here is that he's got this story about when they moved into China, they had this trouble with doing blah, blah, blah. And so you do this immediately. And so your recency and memory, you can do that. I did that in my original PhD back in 1992 because I went to 40 companies in Singapore and South Korea, and I visited them all. I did interviews, and immediately after each interview, I didn't have a sophisticated recorder like this. I had a tape recorder, and I'm immediately after each interview, and I was doing 4 a day. I was back in the taxi, and here I am just speaking into the tape recorder, everything I can remember about the interview. That's how you do it.
Okay, well, it's really a good idea. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Love your energy and passion, Angus. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Who's next? Come on, let's get write down what is your biggest challenge. Could you write that in the chat room? Everyone, just type in what is your biggest challenge now. Come on. I'm here to take you to the next level. If you just go away from here and forget everything, then we've wasted everyone's time tonight. Okay. And I want to add value to you. I want you to go away thinking, okay, O'Connor's taken my DBA to the next level. How can I do that if I haven't done that already? So you need to ask me questions or write in the chat room. Can you do that now, please? Victoria, is that a good idea?
Anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. My name is Eliza. I'm working on the consumer trust on internet-only banks in the UK. For example, it's a consumer trust.
Consumer trust
on internet-only banks in UK.
Okay.
For example, the digital-only banks like Monzo, Sterling, I'm working on these banks, like how consumer trust is impacting their business performance and how consumers are more trusting them instead of traditional banks. So it's more of a comparative study.
That is amazing.
Thank you. And so when I was doing it in the beginning of last year, I was doing the industrial section on my research, and I found out that there are not many papers or documents of the industrial data available on this sector because it's a fairly new sector, I think. And I had to include data from online websites wherever I find anything about consumer satisfaction, market share, or this kind of thing in the Statista or something. So do you think these are valid data source? Because I was worried about that, but I also didn't have any choice.
That's the starting point. That's the starting point. Alicia, you need to start develop a relationship with your community and LinkedIn, for example. For example, you can actually use those data points to come up with a pre-summary of what the consumer sentiment is of this phenomenon. All right. And then you publish that, present that to your LinkedIn community. And then with that, you could follow that up with a survey to your LinkedIn network of, okay, if what is your feeling about internet only banks? 1 or 2 questions, do a poll in LinkedIn. You with me here? So that's one thing that you can try. It costs you nothing to try that. But the work that you have to do is you create that proof of work with the analysis that you've already done from looking at the internet, put it into some kind of graphic that may be meaningful to the LinkedIn community, and then follow that up with, I really appreciate if you can give me your feedback on the following question. Just one question. and it may be a multiple choice question. You know, was your extent of trust of internet only banks in your region? Okay, because you want to appeal worldwide, and then you have 3 responses. Totally trustworthy, and the other opposite response is no trust at all, and then you have 1 or 2 in between. Okay, and then use that, you open that up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then hopefully you get some conversation going around that. Okay, so that's one.
I need a questionnaire for data collection.
Well, I'm just saying that you want to expand your media data collection into an online community data collection. Now, that's not the only thing you need for your DBA, but that's you're going to the next level in trying to get a second source of the phenomena that you are studying. All right. And your DBA is all about getting multiple sources, triangulating that story that you want to tell. All right. And then in the end, you might want to, then you bring that to, you might want to bring that to a internet only bank and collaborate with the internet only bank, because an internet only bank cares about consumer trust. They care about that. So you go to them and say, oh, this is what I found out, you know, the media, this is what I found out with my own analysis through LinkedIn. I'd like to have a talk with you about how I might be able to partner with you because my DBA is about this. And they would be interested to find out. They'll be interested to know that you might be able to bring something to their strategic table in your DBA. Eliza?
Okay.
Have you done that yet?
Very much. No, I mailed some academic sources, which the key sources that I'm using in my research to try to, you know, build a network with academics who worked in relevant topic. I haven't got any response, but I'll try the LinkedIn one.
No, go to LinkedIn. You've got to talk to consumers. LinkedIn, and stay regional. Don't just focus on one zone. Just LinkedIn, appeal to the whole world. In your region, internet-only banks, what's your level of trust? Simple, bang, multiple choice. Then go and approach some of these internet-only banks directly. Say, and basically you're approaching them, which is basically second base. What I'm telling you to do tonight is do first base is go and get a survey from LinkedIn and go and create some of your passion out there in the community. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Oh, no, you're most welcome. And follow up me, send me an email if you've got any questions. Happy to help.
Thank you.
So great, Elisa. So any more questions? Actually, we received some questions prior to the start of the this webinar, but I'm sure that some questions have already been resolved after the webinar. So anyone would like to still have any more questions that you think you need to ask?
I think I listed those questions out. So just make sure we cover everyone, because we're here for you tonight. And remember, your DBA it's a passion project for you. Remember, your topic needs to be your passion. It's someone else doesn't need to care about it as much as you. Okay. And you shouldn't be worried that people don't care about it as much as you. You need to be passionate about it to begin with. That you have to, you have to start with that. All right. Now, some of you asking questions, tips or strategies in writing results and discussion. Well, I gave you some examples of that tonight, whereas in other words, you tabulate, like we did with the interviews. We filtered down, then we tabulated, then we actually filtered, and then we can finally write up one page about each challenge and solution. Okay, next question, is there any theory should be implemented? Oh, the other one was how to take your idea from research proposal over to collection of data over to final dissertation. And so I guess tonight was very much grounded theory, you know, really focusing on the data and moving back to just trying to understand the patterns in the data. Remember, this is a DBA. So don't, and this is your DBA, not your supervisors. Okay, so if you are, you know, if your supervisor's giving you a bum steer, then you might have to change supervisor because this is your only chance to really drive your passion home into the final thesis. Just do that. Questions? Anyone, please type into the chat room now, please. Or what you can do is, can you all write in the chat room, very, very important in terms of feedback, what was the big idea that helped you exactly tonight? What was the thing that helped you only tonight? Can you all write that in the chat room, please? Appreciate that. Can you do that now? Okay, Eunice says tabulate from different angles. Great, great. Okay, so let's see. Gordon, sharp focus. Yes, definitely.
Professor O'Connor, this is Gordon here from Hong Kong. How are you today?
Hi, Gordon. I think you emailed me earlier, is it?
I did.
Yes,
Some
quick
question I would like to ask, may I?
Yes, please.
First one is about the dependent variables, right? For this 60,000 word paper, how many dependent variables we should consider into the construct?
All right. Well, I want you to think about, let me give you an example of the country move study. I showed you I gave you 4 models at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those countries?
Yes, some of them.
Well, let's go through them. We had Vietnam, we had Taiwan, we had Mexico, we have India, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. How many dependent variables did I have?
I'm thinking about 10.
There's only one dependent variable.
What?
The dependent variable was, did they move to that country or not? Right? The independent variable was the reasons for the move. You know, geopolitical risk, incentives for the country, incentives pushing out of China, all right? There's many there, but often your dependent variable only needs to be one item for your whole thesis. Your whole thesis could just be focused on why do companies move to Vietnam? That's all. That's it. The whole one. That's it. All right. Or it could be 2 parts. Why did it move? Or another thesis could be, what is the best predictors of the extent of movement of capacity out of China?
Right.
And, you know, so that's one more dependent variable. But when you have one dependent variable like that, you approach that dependent variable from maybe different theories that may say, well, from a transaction cost point of view, we would expect that there will be a greater move out of China if they go into Mexico, but not Taiwan. But from a red ocean blue strategy point of view, then we would predict another country versus another. And so, you know, that type of DBA is trying to figure out whether one theory or another is better explaining this phenomenon that you are measuring. Yeah, I keep it simple. One dependent variable. One, please. There's one DBA student that I examined from another university, and he had several dependent variables. Then he had lots of interactions, and the theoretical model didn't even fit the modeling, and it was out of control. It was just badly supervised, everything. And we had to tell this student, sorry, you have to do a major rewrite. And by the way, a major rewrite, but you're not allowed to submit it again for another 9 months because it's going to take you that long to do it properly again.
Right. And on our research earlier, you shared with us, obviously you're using qualitative, you've done a lot of interview, transcript, right? My question in here now is, have you considered to add in the quantitative as well to make it as a more mixed method, so that make it more, make the argument more comprehensive?
Yes and no. If you look at my AOS, it's Accounting Organisations and Society, 2011 paper. That's AOS 2011. Go and look at that. You should be able to download it from Elsevier website. And in that, I started off with survey data, and then the reviewers said, oh, maybe you should do some case study analysis. And then I went and did interviews to support the data, and then I wrote it up that way. But what I've tended to do now is go back. I'd sooner go the other way. Interview first and actually just focus on, well, what does the interview and the patterns mean, and don't even worry about the survey to end with anyway. If the interviews were so successful and you got so much data like we've done with this IoT project, there's so much data there just for a DBA on its own. The factory move project, there's several DBAs just in that. And part of the, you've got to understand this. Sometimes you can get away with doing this factory move project as part of your DBA. Why? Because it's so 2021 relevant. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So you've got to, and I'm playing on that, right? And then it's easy to publish too, because editors want that stuff. And so when you've got a hot topic, sometimes reviewers, dissertation panels are more likely to give you a little bit more leeway in your defense of what the data is telling you and what the data means.
Yeah.
Because it's a new phenomenon. It hasn't been studied before.
Yeah.
Okay. The literature never been through a pandemic before. You know what I mean? All right. So you can have that argument as your defense for why you haven't got so much sophisticated algorithms in your DBA. And I understand that many of you have probably been taught, well, you got to do this, lots of data. Now you got to do regression. And now it's better to have 5 regressions than to have 4. It's better to have a PLS model instead of an OLS model. It's better to have this and that. No, I don't think so. It's better to have a sharp understanding of what the dependent variable means than whether the model is qualitative, quantitative, OLS, SEM, or whatever.
Thank you.
All right. Please, everyone, can you write in? Some of you are writing in. Gordon New, sharp focus, Buck, tabulate, tabulate, tabulate. Angus, thank you. The importance of data, play around, getting insights. Yeah, don't forget that. Galaxy, thank you, insightful. More, what else? Working backwards from interviews, writing up, outsourcing, free up. Oh, outsourcing, Fiverr, use Fiverr, Fiverr. Now, there was one data project where I brought on a partner in the USA, and he knew SAS, but he didn't know Stata. And I had all of my computer coding in Stata, which is like SPSS, but much more powerful. And then, so what I did, I went to Fiverr and I found a Russian on Fiverr, and I paid that Russian, I think 40 or 50 US dollars. Oh, can you recode this Stata code into SAS code? And then he recoded it. Then I sent the SAS code to my friend in the US, and then he understood it perfectly, right? That's what I mean by outsourcing stuff, all right? Because I wanted to partner with someone and there was a barrier. I'll outsource that, bang, just get a Russian to do it. They're very good at coding, doing different. You go on to Fiverr, you can get many, many things. In the last 6 years, I think I've put on about over 120 projects on Fiverr. Okay. Yeah, anything ranging from $10 US to $120 US. Okay, or more. I think at one stage I hired you can hire anyone on Fiverr to do stuff for you. All right. And it's okay to hire someone to, look, I'm drawing a blank here. Can you help me with writing some of this to get you from A to B? Then you, at the end of the day, you know, you've got to proofread everything and make sure it's what you want to say. But remember, your passion is in that idea and your collection of the data. It's not just in the writing, your DBA. All right. Don't ever forget that. Your uniqueness is the passion you have for that topic. What else? Rowan says working backwards from interviews to writing up. Okay, more. Come on. There's 40
Doctor,
of you here.
may I know how to spell fiber again?
Yes, Eunice.
May I know how to spell fiber again?
Fiverr. Let me type it in. Fiverr. That's it. Fiverr.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Do anything for you. You just go on. It's just like anything for $5. That's how it got the idea of Fiverr. Okay. I get PowerPoint slides made up. Those graphs I showed you tonight, all those beautiful graphs, I didn't do them. I had my RA do that. But I made sure that I knew what those graphs mean, and then my passion flowed through those graphs. Are you with me here? I didn't just present them as if, oh, see this graph? You know, I was passionate about the topic, and you need to bring that right throughout all the chapters of your DBA. That's whether you outsource or you don't, but you've got to outsource stuff. You have to outsource stuff. Right, Gordon, be resilient, grit, carry on, mindset. Absolutely, you have to do that. What else? Pat, what are you thinking? Bowie, what are you thinking? Mandy, Rosalind, Stella, Samuel, putting you on the spot here. Kitty, what do you think? Victoria, I think they're wanting to get rid of me. They're not saying anything.
They're just being quiet.
Well, but we want a solution. We want you to go away with new ideas, new ways of doing stuff, because we all have a common need here, and that is to get to the end of your DBA. Am I right? Like, I know what it's like. 12 months, 18 months ago, some of you maybe years ago, you were so excited about starting your DBA, and now it's worn you down, and you're probably thinking, oh, do I have to finish it? How do I get to the next stage? I'm sure some of you are going through that. All right. This is where you need to talk with people about what you're doing more often. Do not go around yourself with a big backpack on your back on your own. Okay. All right. Here's Angus. How about Amazon Mechanical Turk? It's a good source to find interviewees. Yes, it is. Yes. Use Mechanical Turk. Use it to actually get your proof of work data. Remember, proof of work, that's your base one. I'm not a fan of using that as your base 3 data, but at least helping you develop your proof of work. Okay. All right. Harry, passion. So now I have to rethink new research topic. Yes. Just change the topic. All right. I'm working on papers that have been rejected. I've worked on a paper that's been rejected on the third round, and we're going 2.5 years with this major journal, AOS, got rejected. And I'm devastated by that. And I started working on that paper over 10 years ago. But I do not let that stop me from working on a 2021 project. You know, factory moves out of China, this IoT stuff, all this IoT crowdfunding. This is new stuff. You've got to try and come up with topics that are relevant to what's going on now. All right. And it's really, how do you save? And the other thing too, all right, outsourcing. How else can you save time? The other way of saving time is go into YouTube and search for that topic. Some of you are studying ESG, environmental social governance, right? You know, it's a big issue now, ESG. Environmental social governance, reporting, you know, environmental practices, sustainability and all of that. Go into YouTube and look for people that are talking about the latest in reporting. Find a guru where you use them speaking into your mind every other day, just to remind you about why you were passionate about that topic. Okay, it's so critical that you lean on the internet and other people that through the internet to help you stay. Yeah, TED Talk, exactly. All right, TED Talk. You know, I'm very passionate about. For example, I'm very passionate about Industry 4.0. I'll give you an example. All right, so China Daily. You all know China Daily. Victoria, do they know China Daily?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. So they contacted me in was it in end of April? Oh, Neil, can you speak to our forum on AI and manufacturing? And I said, sure. And but I really didn't know much about it. But I knew that over the next 4 or 5 weeks, I want to become expert on that. And so I met with industry person, had lunch with an industry guy. And then one day the industry guy said, oh, you need to know all about MES. And I'm thinking, wow, what's MES? What's that? And then I went into YouTube and I found Walker Reynolds, who's got a huge channel on all about Industry 4.0 applied to manufacturing. And so then from listening to all these talks, I learned about the fact that you need to have a connection with the ERP, the MES system, with the SCADA, which is supervised control and data acquisition, which is connected to your PLI and also your sensor mechanisms on the factory floor. You can see I'm talking about all of this mumbo jumbo that is relevant for AI manufacturing. Did I do an engineering background? No, not at all. All right. I just went to YouTube and I tapped into this channel and I listened to it every day leading up to giving that presentation. And of course, I used my own factory videos and gave a really good presentation. And actually a copy of that presentation, it goes for 15 minutes, is on my YouTube channel. You should watch that because it's got over nearly 2,500 views now in 1 month. So that's an example how you can just fast track your knowledge in a particular area. Okay. So your passion needs to be fed just like your stomach every day. All right. Your passion, if you starve it, you're going to starve it once you start thinking about other things on your daily responsibilities and things like that. You need to feed your passion every day. TED Talk, Clubhouse, be passionate. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Great stuff. Rowan, what do you think? Harry, what do you think? Eunice, Stella, Tyler, Rosalind, anyone else? I think we better finish this up. Victoria, I'm happy to finish.
Great.
I can go for another 3 hours, but how about we save it for next time? All right. Yeah.
So that's okay. We next time or next year we can invite you to speak to everyone again. So if you by then you have any more questions, you can take your chance. But for now.
On one condition, only if the students feel that I'm adding value, and that's the most, that's all I care about. Okay. Sure. If I add value and make your path on the DBA closer to the end, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear in 2 or 3 years' time, O'Connor helped me get to the end. That's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And you can write to us and what you feel or what you feel about the webinars we have organized. So just let us know what you think. So thank you so much, Neil. And also thank you everyone who have participated tonight. And thank you for those who have shared their issues and problems. So it's a bit earlier to say, but I wish you a very good weekend ahead.
Oh, very good.
Let me add one thing to
Sure.
Thank you very much, Professor Neil, because I'm representing the DBA program. I manage the program at the London campus, and one of our students, Aliza, has benefited from your insights. At the London campus, we do have regular sessions around topical issues, the research journey, and despite the fact I was expecting more students from our campus, I'm grateful that Aliza got useful insights, which I'll be discussing with her, and all things being equal, she'll take that up with her supervisors. It's a pleasure to see the way you logically presented the data analysis. For many of our students, it's a challenge. Yes. It's a challenge how they can look at their data and understand how teams can be generated or emerge from in vivo. It's a big challenge, and I do appreciate that, especially with the fact that the DBA is linked to the industry. Most times we have our students focusing more on the academic side of things while downplaying the impact on industry contributions. So thank you very much from me, John Paul, and that's all I can say, Professor Neil.
John Paul, we need to connect. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. Happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
And thank you for your support, John Paul.
You're welcome, Wendy. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. So Neil, any last words to say? Any last advice?
My last advice, take action and make sure your mind and passion is fed. That's the first thing you should feed every morning, okay? Your passion for your topic.
Best wishes to all of you. Good luck.
Thank you,
Bye.
Wendy. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Prof.
Bye. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah.